Hello, today we're talking about spacing the balusters when building a set of handrails. So here we have two posts. We've got a landing built in between here, and here we've got our handrail and our bottom rail installed. So now we want to install all of our balusters. When we install these balusters, we need to make sure that all of the spacings between these are all the same, right down to the very last spacing as well. Now there's a very easy way to calculate where they should all go without having to do the difficult thing of installing them all and then measuring and moving them and measuring them again. So there's two measurements we want to start off with first. So the first measurement is going to be opening plus baluster, and the other is gap plus baluster. So let's start firstly with this opening plus baluster. So the opening size is this distance between the posts, and we want to add a baluster to it. So we're going to just grab one of our balusters, we're going to line it up flush on the inside there, draw a little pencil line on the back edge on the post. So there's our pencil line on the post. We're going to measure right from edge of post to edge of that line that we've just marked. On my example here, we've got 1400 between the posts and a 62mm baluster, which gives us 1462 opening plus baluster, and that's the first number we're going to use. The second one is gap plus baluster. So I'm going to take two balusters and I'm going to space them apart a distance that I think looks nice as a gap in between my balusters. That could be anything you decide to use. I've decided to go for 80mm in between, no particular reason, plus a 62mm baluster. So I'm going to measure from edge of baluster to edge of baluster, and I've ended up with a measurement of 142. And that number will be whatever you decide to on the job. Once I've got my two numbers, I'm going to do a simple divided by sum on my calculator. I'm going to go 1462 divided by 142. That gives me a figure of 10.2. Now, this means 10.2 balusters. Obviously, we can't have 0.2 of a baluster. So we need to either round this up to 11, which will give us a slightly smaller gap, or we round it down to 10 and that gives us a slightly bigger gap. And you can do either, it doesn't really matter. The only restriction you have is the final gap between the balusters must be less than 125 legally in Australia. So I'm going to round mine down, and I'm going to do another divided by sum, 1462 divided by 10. That gives me a spacing of 146.2. So I originally estimated that I would need a spacing of 142, but once I worked out the number, rounded it off, divided it out again, I end up with an exact spacing of 146.2. So I can either keep typing that into a calculator to get my spacings, or I can cut a piece of timber at that length and mark it along here. You can even mark the spacings onto a stick of timber and use it as a spacing rod. Simply use it to mark your spacings in the bottom and the top, and that ensures everything is nice and parallel. So I've got a series of marks here from the edge of the post, just gone 146, 146, and so on, all the way up. And these marks are the edge of each of my balusters. So when I install them, I just line the edge of each one up with those marks. And once they're all installed, you will find that this last space here is the same as this first space there. And that's all it is. And doing the stairs exactly the same way, just measure opening plus baluster, and when you use your marking stick, just hold it horizontally, and you'll keep all of your balusters nice and parallel. And if you have more than one bay of handrail, you want to try to make sure that the gaps you have in one bay are as close as possible to the gaps you have in the next bay. So when you get to the point of either rounding up or rounding down, choose the one that's going to give you the most consistent result between bays of handrails. So to review, measure your opening plus a baluster, measure your gap plus a baluster, divide them together, whatever number you get, either round up or round down, divide it by that, gives you an exact spacing, mark that spacing along there, and line up the edges of your balusters with that spacing. Thank you and good luck.